Hello and welcome to video 2 on Intro to STATA 16 on AU apps. In this video, we're going to talk about how to recode existing variables and create new variables, do some basic graphs, and run an independent samples t-test. So to jump back into STATA where we left off, before we were doing some tables, we had imported the data set, we talked about the different console features, and the importance of running a do file. So let's talk a little bit about recoding and generating new variables. So I'm going to go down to line 48 of our do file. Now, often we're interested in taking a percentage change in one variable affected another variable. So see how those things work. So in those cases, we would like to probably take a log of that variable. For example, we will generate a log of gross domestic product per capita, or Gdpc. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and run line 50. So we're using gen, which is short for generate. We have our new variable name, log underscore Gdpc, and that's going to be a function of taking the Gdpc and taking the log of that. So if we highlight and run line 50, in our console window in the results, we're saying, okay, it's generated that. We can see that here too by saying log underscore Gdpc, and it says 43 missing values generated. If we take a look at the data set, and if we scroll all the way over to the right, here's our new variable. And because we had missing on some Gdpc values, it's still missing in log Gdpc. Now what I could do is I could go ahead and let me close out of this editor version really quick. Again, I can go ahead and go to log Gdpc, unlock the properties, and type in log of Gdpc, and then relock it. So just adding a variable label there. We can also do things like I'm going to go ahead and do a tab for corruption. Now this is going to give a table of the frequencies for corruption. This is not really advisable because it's showing just the frequencies for each and every variable step because it's 1.7, 1.8, and so forth. So when you're looking at a continuous variable like corruption or Gdpc, it really makes more sense to look at measures of central tendency and variability. So if we run codebook, so line 54, so I'm going to highlight and run that. We're going to get our mean and our standard deviation, so this is our average score, and how spread out the data is around that. Now corruption, though, is reverse coded, so higher scores actually mean less perceived corruption. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to reverse this so that higher scores mean more corruption. So we're going to generate a variable called corrupt2, and that's going to be a function of 10 minus each country's current perceived corruption scores. So when we do this, okay, it went ahead and created it. We have our new variable here. I'm going to go ahead and change the name of this. Reverse coded corruption scores. I'm going to lock it. And I'm going to view the data set. And I'm going to give this a quick eyeball check. So I'm going to take this first country, has a 2.5 corruption. Reverse coded, it is a 7.5. If you add those two up, they should equal the maximum value, which is 10. Because of that, I know that this worked out fine. So that looks great. So now we have a variable that higher scores mean more perceived corruption. Now, sometimes for interpretations, you actually might want to create separate categories instead, like a high, medium, and low group. Now, we're going to walk through how to do this. And this really helps with interpretation. So rather than talking about a country with a 6.5 versus a 6.7 versus a 7.2, talk about countries that are high in corruption or low in corruption instead. It has much easier interpretations. Now, this does come at a cost because essentially we're seeing everyone between a range of, let's say, 0 to 3.3. We're going to use equal spacings from 0 to 10 for corruption. Everyone between a 0 and a 3.3, we're giving them a 1 and saying low. So if they have a 0 or if they have a 3.2, we're saying it doesn't matter, it's the same. So you do lose information, you lose variability around that too. So essentially we're treating everyone within that category as equivalent. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go ahead and use a recode statement. We're saying, okay, we want to recode our corruption2 variable. If they have a score between 0 to 3.3, give them a 1, and we're adding a label of low. The next one, we have a 3.31 and a 6.66. If they're anywhere between those, give them a 2 and label that a medium. And then a 6.67 to a 10, give them a 3 and call them high. And we have an option saying, okay, from this, generate a new variable called corrupt categ. That's short for corruption categorized. Now, each of these is mutually exclusive. There's no country that can fall in between multiple or is omitted, because we're working with 2 decimal points rather than just 1 for these. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. And then I'm going to go ahead and if I click here and scroll over, now we have our high, low, and medium. And all these are encoded, so a high is a 3, a low is a 1, and a medium is a 2. That all looks great. So let me go ahead and close out of this window. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a label. So we did this before with properties. You can do the same thing here with syntax. So we're saying, okay, label variable, and it's going to be this variable. I'm going to call this corruption index in 3 categories. So if we highlight and run line 60, if I scroll down here, it's added that same variable label. We've stated there's multiple ways to do the same exact thing. Now what I'm going to do now is we're going to look at a table and get, okay, what's the frequencies for the number of countries in each of these different categories. I'm going to highlight and run line 62. And because we've used equally spaced groupings and not based on the distribution, it's not going to be equivalent for the percentages. But we can kind of see, okay, how many in each? Most of our data would fall within the high corruption. Okay, great. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to look at some basic graphs. We're going to demonstrate how to create a histogram, a scatter plot. And a histogram is a way to show frequency distributions of a variable. A scatter plot is showing the relationship between one variable and another variable in quadrant. So first what I'm going to do is we're going to create a really basic histogram. So I'm using the hist function, and I'm saying, okay, run a histogram on Gdpc. So I'm going to highlight 71, and then a separate visual is going to pop up, or a separate box. This is the visual. Now, it's not great. We're actually going to make some modifications to this to make it better. We probably want to change the y-axis to make that more interpretable, maybe add like a note on here where we got the data, and maybe a title wouldn't hurt. So I'm going to close this. And actually, we're going to do that. So we're doing the options. We're adding for frequency, a title, and in parentheses saying what the title is, and then using the note function and saying, okay, provide a note saying where we got the data. That's a little bit better. Now, again, we can't copy and paste this directly. So if we go to File, Save As, we can actually save this. So .gph is a STATA file extension type, so you can save it and open it up at another time point. Or you can go to File, Save As, and then change it to a JPEG file if you want to, or a PNG or PDF. What you can also do too is go to File, Start Graph Editor, and this will actually allow you to point and click through and make changes. So you can change the title, you can change the different axis information too, but you can't run anything else in STATA until you close or you stop the graph editor. So suppose you're curious about the relationship of GDP per capita, or Gdpc, and corruption index of a country, corruption2. So we'd probably want to use a scatter plot to visualize the relationship between these two variables. We would also want to include like a trend line in the title to help us understand what we're seeing. So I'm going to go ahead and create a scatter plot. So the function for that is called two-way, parentheses scatter, that's defining what type of plot, and then our two variables. So our y-axis is going to be Gdpc, our x-axis is corrupt2. And so now we have our scatter plot. I'm going to go ahead and close this, but we're going to go ahead and add some more information now. So we might want to add in a line of best fit. That's our regression line. We're adding in the title and a note here too. So now we can kind of see, okay, based on our regression line, where is the line that minimizes the difference between our expected value and the actual, or residuals? We can kind of see, okay, this is a negative. So as countries are more and more corrupt, we're seeing a reduction in Gdpc. So is that relationship? Again, it's correlational, it's not causal claims, because this is cross-sectional. We have our slope for each unit increase in corruption. There's going to be a reduction in Gdpc, so a negative relationship. We might also want to look at the average GDP per capita for each of our categorical levels of corruption. To do this, we'll create a bar graph. So in line 85, we're saying, okay, we're using a graph. It's going to be a bar type. And we have to say, okay, we're taking the sum, we're taking the mean of Gdpc, comma, and then we're going to say over corruption category. So go ahead and telling STATA to get the mean for Gdpc for each of our corruption categorical variables and return that in a bar graph. So we kind of seen that same relationship. Countries with low corruption, that categorization, tend to have on average a higher mean Gdpc compared to medium and compared to high. Now, this is not telling us if these differences are statistically significant, though. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to run a bivariate analysis, specifically a t-test, and to really compare two groups based on the scores in a single variable. While we divided corruption categories, or the corruption index, into 3 groups, we're only going to be comparing 2 of those groups at a time using a t-test. So for now, we're going to go ahead and compare groups 2 and groups 3. That's our medium with our high. And we're going to go ahead and say, okay, run a t-test. Our outcome is Gdpc. If inline, this is where we can actually say, okay, what's our grouping variable? Specify the groups, and then by corruption category. So when we do that, we get our t-test. We get our descriptive information first, our grouping variable, number of observations, the means, standard error, standard deviation, and our 95% constant interval around our mean. So if we were to replicate the study an infinite number of times, do this over and over again, 95% of the time under repeated trials, that the mean would be somewhere in between this 95% confidence interval. What's our combined? We're not really interested in that, but what's our difference? So this is the mean difference between them. And we can see that medium had higher Gdpc than high. And if we look here, this is our difference, our mean median minus mean high. Under our null, because we're always testing the null hypothesis, we're saying that the mean of medium and the mean of high is equal. There's no difference. Our alternative, if we reject the null, we're going to say we reject it in favor of the alternative. Now, we didn't specify which one, so we're just going to say is not equal to 0, because we didn't specify directionality. So based on this, our t-value is 10.14 with 126 degrees of freedom. Our p-value is less than 0.001. So looking at this t and looking at this p, or PR parentheses t, this is our p-value, tells us about the degrees of statistical incompatibility of the data with the null hypothesis. Now, p-values do not provide any information about reproducibility, the probability of getting the results by random chance, or the size of the effect. Now, with this, we're looking at a probability value, or p-value, less than 0.050. Based on this, we're going to reject the null in favor of the alternative. So we're saying that, okay, there is statistical significance differences between those mean values of the groups. So we're going to go ahead and stop here. And in the next video, we're going to talk about correlation and regression.